Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, freaks and fiends, and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, and with me as always is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India horror, the expert of guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Amy Rose.
Hi.
So, we're going to try this again.
Okay.
Because we know we're late.
Yep.
There's a reason we're late. I've been trying.
We also had a busy week. We had family shit this week.
But let's explain.
Okay.
So we covered this story originally in October of 2023 in a two-parter.
Yeah.
It was actually episode 7 and 8 of It's Alive. We were still early on in our run, so we were still trying to figure out the right ingredients to make the perfect recipe of horror and true crime. 2 years on and on the road to episode 100, we've learned a lot. Not just about performance, but about research and storytelling at its core. That being said, we felt this tale was too great to abandon. Too disturbing to leave unfinished. And because, if truth be told, when we covered this originally, we kind of just hit the surface of who the Sawyer clan really are and the scope or reach that they had in the annals of horror-filled crime.
Yeah.
So today, we take what we did in a two-parter and we flesh it out over 5 weeks. We look at the Sawyers under a new lens and with fresh eyes, and what we discover is more dark, disturbing, and complex than anything we could have ever imagined. Yes, this is horrific. Yes, this will keep you up at night. And yes, this is a tale so dark it feels more like myth or legend than reality. But I can assure you, the Sawyers are very real, and the tale is confusing for a purpose. To keep us out, to keep us guessing, and to keep the legend and legacy alive. So bear with us and try to trust that we have all the bases covered. What you might know about the Sawyers might not arrive in a neat little package today, but by the time we hit episode 100, it'll all be crystal clear. Now, traditionally, we would start at the beginning. That's how stories work, isn't it? You start at the beginning and you work your way forward.
Generally.
But that's not how the Sawyer story gets revealed to the world, and that's not how we're going to do it either. This week, we will discuss the original legend, the Hardesty incident, as it is known. It happened in 1973. That story, or the stories that came from that attack. Oh yeah, and the stories that came from that attack. So we're covering the Hardesty incident.
Okay.
The original story that kickstarts everything that eventually finishes in 1994.
Yeah.
Then next week, we will step back in time and try to the best of our ability to stitch the backstory or the family tree together and try to understand how we got to where we finished today. Okay? By then, I hope we'll have enough backstory laid down that what happens next is easier to follow, and over the final 3 weeks, we'll follow as the Sawyers go from strength to strength and eventually collapse under the pressure of their own ecosystem that they created for themselves. We'll see how unity was always their strong point and separation chips them apart little by little, year by year. Now, last time we based all our story off of testimony of survivors of the Sawyers, along with witness and police records, right?
Mm-hmm.
This time, we're taking it a little further because over the past few years, information has trickled out to the public. Information that was kept in a file and locked away, deemed too much for public consumption. This file is known within inner circles as the Robert Sawyer files, a dossier of elite family names who were complicit in trafficking of human bodies for the purpose of sex, murder, and meat. That all sounds very familiar to what's going on today.
Yep.
This file will be important going from part 3 to 5 when it comes to explaining the rise and fall of the Sawyers from the 1980s till their collapse in 1994. Now, anyone who knows this story knows exactly who Robert Sawyer is, and they know that he is hardly a reliable source. But he's the closest we have to an insider when it comes to family affairs. His psychobabble therapy, his correspondence with his brothers while in military service, and letters he wrote from his cell that he thought was being sent out to his family paint a picture of what really happened within the tight-knit unit of cannibal kin. So, with all that in mind, let's get the ball rolling and let's get cracking with the Sawyer family and the legend of Leatherface, part 1, the Hardesty incident.
Okay.
Take it away, Amy Rose.
So the Sawyer house was not hidden, and that's the first myth that needs to die. It stood off a country road that had been driven for decades by farmers, churchgoers, delivery trucks, and bored teenagers looking for somewhere quiet to drink. The fencing sagged. The paint had surrendered to the Texas sun. The porch swing moved in the wind like any other rural farmhouse. It looked poor, but it didn't look dangerous. County records show that the property passed through Sawyer hands for years, though the paperwork never lined up cleanly. Spellings changed, ages shifted, and census entries contradicted earlier filings. But nothing was dramatic enough to trigger seizure or investigation. Taxes were paid just often enough. Utilities flickered on and off. And in pre-digital Texas, if something wasn't formally flagged, it simply wasn't pursued.
You know, I looked at this house a little closer this week.
Yeah.
Old pictures. The outside of the house and the front area of the house where the porch swing was.
Yeah.
It's actually a really pretty house.
Oh, it
it
is.
does need a paint job, but it's a
the
pretty fucking
southern
house.
houses are really gorgeous to look at.
But that's kind of almost part of the trap.
Like Hansel and Gretel.
It's a nice looking house. It's the deeper you get into the house,
The worse it gets.
And right there is the crack in the foundations, right? So there's no shared database, no statewide digital alerts. If you didn't scream loud enough in the right county office, you didn't exist as a problem. Paper records don't talk to each other, and predators love silence between departments. So what you were saying beforehand there, before I went off about how beautiful the house was they weren't getting flagged because this is a time where the digital database doesn't fucking exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unless you're a real pain in the fucking ass, nobody's coming knocking on your door.
Nobody.
Unless you were living near a fucking serious busybody, you don't have a whole lot to worry about.
Yeah.
And they're living in the middle of fucking nowhere, so.
Yeah. Neighbours remembered fragments. A thin man at auction, an older relative at the slaughterhouse before it closed, a large figure hauling scrap metal in the early mornings. But no one could confidently describe how many people lived there. Livestock had been slaughtered on that land for generations. The smell of blood was normal, and the sound of engines and chains was normal. When the local slaughterhouse shut down, dozens were laid off. Some families retrained, some located, but there's no record that the Sawyers did either. Instead, the property grew quieter, more insulated.
And here's what people miss. If you grow up around industrial slaughter, death isn't shocking. It's procedural.
Yep.
You don't flinch at blood. You don't romanticize animals like your Cat Williams buying a farm. You learn efficiency. Now, take that environment away from supervision. Take away payroll. take away oversight, and ask yourself, what can those skills get repurposed for?
Yeah. Around that same time, cemetery disturbances increased in nearby counties. Fresh graves were opened, coffins tampered with. Authorities documented vandalism but never secured suspects. Years later, testimony would link Norbert Nubbins Sawyer to escalating grave desecration. Bones repurposed, skin tanned, household items constructed from human remains. The farmhouse interior became less domestic and more curated. Then, in 1955, Betty Hartman was found dead inside the Sawyer barn.
Now, that seems like it comes out of nowhere, but it comes out of nowhere for a purpose.
For a reason.
Purpose being they had done a really good fucking job at insulating themselves.
Mm.
And this is pretty much in the history of Sawyer, from what I can tell, from the patriarch beginning with Earl Sawyer to the 1973 Hardesty incident.
Mm.
This is really the closest they came to anybody
Sniffing around, yeah.
So Betty Hartman was the daughter of Newt County Sheriff Hal Hartman. And Newt County is where all this happens in Texas.
Okay.
She was out with her boyfriend for an afternoon drive, looking for a quiet road to have some teenage fun, if you know what I mean. According to Betty Hartman's boyfriend, Ted Enright, they were on a small overgrown road close to the Sawyer farm listening to music, because that's what the kids used to call it back then, listening to music.
What do we call that now?
Sex.
Oh my God, I'm so innocent.
When Betty heard what sounded like a young boy cry in pain, Ted said Betty got out of the car and ran right into the thick brush to find the wounded child. So again, straight away you can see good heart in Betty here.
This is the oldest trick in the book, though, with the child.
His seatbelt was stuck, so he trailed behind a little and lost sight of her in the weeds pretty fast. Very responsible in 1955 to be wearing a seatbelt.
Very responsible. Do they have seatbelts in 1955?
This guy did. The next time Betty was seen, she was dead in the Sawyer's barn with a huge truck engine on her now crushed skull.
Yikes.
Hal was convinced the family had lured and murdered his daughter, but at the time, evidence said different. At the time, it looked like a young woman trespassed onto a working farm, and unaware of the danger surrounding her, Betty knocked off a chain holding this engine in the air where it was being worked on. Now remember, this is 1955. Forensics are non-existent. Blood splatter analysis do not exist yet. So at the time, Hal Hartman had to accept his daughter's death as a tragic farm-related accident. But later re-examination of the case files showed the original explanation to be impossible. For one, she was found lying down. If it had come as an accident, then the engine would have surely hit Betty from the top of her head, crushing her down. But files from the time indicate that she was laying flat and the engine had hit her face first. So come from this direction. Not the top of her skull, basically.
Yeah.
So what really happened was Betty followed the sound into the barn where she fell. Oh, sorry. I'm not pulling this information out of nowhere. This comes from Robert Sawyer. He later kind of admitted to this in court-appointed sessions with a psychiatrist. At that point, he had checked out mentally and didn't really give a fuck what he was saying or know what he was saying to the people he was saying it to. So what really happened was, according to him, Betty followed the sound into the barn where she fell into a pit that had been it was a little pit they had that had been covered up by rotten wooden boards. When she fell in, she broke her legs, and according to Robert, she also may have seen a little too much in the barn. So what were the wooden panels covering? Bodies. What was in the pit? We don't know. Because he never admits to anything there. All we know is he said Drayton Sawyer, who we will meet soon, made the decision and egged the twins on to drop the engine into the pit, killing the girl who was at the time only 22 years old. Now, let me go back a little bit. The twins, Robert and Norbert, Nubbins, and Chop Top, as they were both known.
Are twins.
Yeah, they're twins.
Okay.
So this was when they were little. So yeah, he egged them on to kill the girl.
Okay.
But just like they always did, they learned from this mistake, this misstep in anonymity. The investigation was brief with no witnesses, but both Hal and Betty's boyfriend Ted always stayed steadfast in their belief that there was more to the story than what they were being told at the time. Now we know they were right. Unfortunately, they never got that luxury. They were long dead by the time it was revealed that
they were right.
Yeah, that Betty had been murdered. And they're not done with those bodies either. We'll talk about them in a little bit soon again.
Yeah. So officially, nothing changed. No warrants, no seizures, no arrests that stuck. The road stayed opened and the house stayed occupied. And whatever was forming inside those walls continued uninterrupted.
Rural fucking areas back in the day are scary. Even here in this country, how many fucking murders? I mean, we're split. There's very rare casual murder around Ireland. There are murders. There's men who kill women. There's gangsters who fucking kill gangsters. And when it's men killing women, it's usually ex-lover or current lover.
Or husband.
And then there are, I would say, definitely a high rate of farmyard killings due to fucking land disputes.
Oh, the field. Sure, that happens down the road. Like, yeah.
Farmyard accidents, all this kind of stuff. But I mean, like, I would hazard a guess, without even checking, I would guess that there's a good portion of our murders. If you were to categorize our murders, I would say top 5 reasons for a murder in Ireland is a farmland dispute.
That's very true. I was only telling you yesterday about my great-great-granddad. That's on his birth cert and it's death cert, and it's very touch and go. I mean, how do you mistake sheep dewormer for something that you should be taking? Go figure. But that was farmyard as well.
Yeah, I mean, since we started the show, I can think off the top of my head 3 farm-related fucking death, murder, suicides.
Would we call the one lately? Would you call that a farmyard death? I mean, a slurry pit.
Well, a farmer was killed by his farmhand, so yes.
That's true.
I mean,
that is the most shocking one in Ireland for a long time, I think.
No. Remember
to have his body cut up and put into a slurry tank.
Like was it like 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago?
Oh shit, yeah, the shotgun.
Was it in Cork where the father and son went in and murdered the wife and other son over a land dispute, and then the two of them went out onto their field and committed suicide?
Land is a very tenuous thing in Ireland. I know a couple that are in their 90s that got divorced over land. And they're in their 90s, like, they just couldn't do it anymore because of the dispute over land.
Fucking bonkers.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But I suppose if your land is taken, we have that kind of thing of it's our land, I suppose, bred into us for the last 800 years.
Yeah, we're sick of people taking our land.
Family or no family. So if the house was visible, the family was indistinct. On paper they existed, but only barely. Property rolls listed variations of the Sawyer name across decades. Marriage licenses appear and disappear. Census records show age inconsistencies that blur generational lines. A father becomes an uncle. A brother becomes a cousin. In rural counties, clerical errors were common, but here the inconsistencies formed a pattern. There are no consistent school records for the younger males tied to property, no stable medical documents, no confirmed psychiatric evaluations. Birth certificates were filed late or not at all. Identity inside the house was fluid. Jed, Jedediah, Bubba. Different names surface in fragments of statements and reports. Without a fixed legal identity, accountability becomes difficult.
And that's not just sloppy paperwork.
No.
That's tactical ambiguity. If you can't prove who someone is, you can't prove where they were. If you can't prove where they were, you can't charge them. Names anchor responsibility. Take the anchor away and the whole case drifts. And I mean, no, you just named Jedediah, Bubba. that's all the same person. He was also known as Junior, Thomas. It just goes on and on and on. They've switched names repeatedly. They've changed their surname repeatedly. They've been known as Sawyers, Hewitts, Slaughters. And there's also a reason why brothers become cousins, cousins become uncles,
There
uncles
sure is.
Well, we'll discuss that next week when
Giggity.
I try to unravel the Sawyer family tree. That's going to be a fun episode all on its own.
Yep.
Anyway.
Neighbours described structure, not chaos. An ancient-looking man sitting on the house porch. A middle-aged man who handled money and transactions. Younger males who appeared only when supplies were needed. Authority remained internal. Discipline did not spill outward, and disputes were handled on the property. The largest of the younger men, later identified in reports as Bubba, did not engage socially. He followed instruction. He reacted to cues, and he executed tasks assigned to him. There are no hospital records conclusively tied to his development. No special education records, no psychiatric assessments. Whatever limitations he had were managed privately or ignored.
And that's kind of uncomfortable. If you isolate someone long enough, you don't just limit their growth, you define their reality. No school, no therapy, no outside correction, just hierarchy, just obedience, just reinforcement. And at that point, you're not raising a person, you're conditioning a role.
Exactly.
But in defense of the Sawyers,
they took care of their family.
No, well, that's not what I was going to say. That's you defending them too much. I was going to say, when it came to people who were on the spectrum in the early 1900s all the way up to the early
they were labelled
2000s,
as the fool. Yeah.
this is kind of how they were dealt with.
Exactly.
And I mean, that is up until maybe 20 years ago.
They were kind of seen as if you give them a purpose, they'll get on fine. So teach them how to do this and just let them at it.
I mean, I remember like when I was in primary school and my brother got fucking diagnosed with dyslexia, and you'd swear like whoever fucking diagnosed him with dyslexia, it was like they deserved a Nobel Prize because this was so revolutionary.
Oh yeah.
So fucking whoa. We are going to deal with his dyslexia and we are not going to treat him like a bad child.
No, yeah. But
He's
I mean,
a bad egg, I'm telling you. I'm only messing, Dave.
it's like I swear the Tourette's film and that poor man beaten by his teachers and beaten by the students. I mean, how the fuck? Like, it's just awful when you think of how these things were dealt with.
Yeah, that's it. The structure wasn't there. So you can imagine when you're in that situation, but your family are also fucking batshit crazy and inbred to the fucking point of fucking royalty. You know, it's not going to help your situation. You're not being brought up.
One
right.
generation short of the Habsburg chin. So the Sawyers didn't live completely outside the system. They paid property taxes often enough. They avoided sustained arrests. Purchase supplies in town remained visible but not involved. And they did not draw attention. They did not seek integration. They operated at the edge of administrative priority. And because no single event forced intervention, no intervention came.
Yeah. They didn't beat the system. They survived inside its blind spots.
Yeah.
Small county. Limited manpower.
Yeah.
No national database. No coordinated follow-up. If there isn't political pressure, there isn't urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And without urgency, nothing moves.
By the early 1970s, the Sawyer household was not a mystery to locals. It was a rumor. A strange family on an old property. Quiet, private, avoided. Nothing proven, nothing prosecuted, and nothing dismantled.
So nothing outside of Betty Hartman. There's no real warning signs here so far. They're
Nothing.
just the quirky family. They exist.
We probably know families that are just the quirky family. We know of families that are just the quirky family. Are we
Sorry
just the
to
quirky
be
family?
the one to break this to you.
Is that the penny just dropped, but we're not like the Sawyers. We're just quirky.
You tell him, sis.
Oh, you can sleep on the couch tonight.
Okay.
Before the house became legend, it was labor. Multiple records and witness accounts place members of the Sawyer family working at the regional slaughterhouse prior to its closure. It was steady employment, industrialized killing, assembly line precision even. Animals processed in volume, efficiency prioritized over sentiment. Workers on the kill floor do not hesitate. They stun, they bleed, they dismember, they repeat. When the slaughterhouse closed, dozens were displaced. Some relocated and some retrained. There is no confirmed record that the Sawyers pursued either path. Instead, they remained on inherited land, already conditioned for blood work.
And that's the pivot. Because when your entire skill set revolves around controlled death, unemployment doesn't erase it. It removes supervision and you don't forget. You don't forget how to cut.
No.
You just lose the rules about who gets cut.
Yeah. Industrial slaughter is procedural. It's compartmentalized. Animals are reduced to parts, heads separated, organs sorted, waste repurposed. Emotion is removed from the task. And for those raised in that environment, blood isn't a spectacle, it's workflow. When the plant shut down, the workflow didn't vanish. The tools remained, the property remained, the isolation remained.
Yeah, and here's where the environment matters. If you grow up watching life reduce to product, morality shifts.
Yeah.
Not because you're born monstrous, because repetition rewires response. Desensitized. Oh, I've always had problems with that. I've had problems with this word since Drowning Pool named their second album after it.
Do you want me to say it for you?
Desensitization is not myth.
Hey!
It's documented. Kill floor workers historically show higher rates of aggression and emotional detachment. Now, isolate that dynamic on private land with no oversight and a background of generational violence to begin with. That's not a theory, that's trajectory.
Yeah. After the closure, Drayton Sawyer reopened a small roadside gas station and barbecue stand. It was modest and unremarkable. It served passing drivers and locals alike. Health inspections during that period were minimal and sporadic in rural Texas, especially in Newt County, the literal middle of nowhere. There are no livestock purchase records tied clearly to the Sawyer property during this time. No documented cattle runs, no recorded hog sales, but the barbecue continued.
And that's the question no one asked loudly enough. If you're serving meat consistently, where is it sourced? Because supply chains leave trails.
Can't believe you got no busybody go, where'd you get your meat? Like they would now.
Well, again, like livestock leaves papers, but silence kind of leaves imagination. And the thing about it is, can you remember as a kid in the 90s sourcing this whole farm to plate fucking thing they have now where you can source your food right back to its farm? That wasn't a big deal.
That became a big deal after mad cow disease, was it? You need to be able to know.
Became an even bigger deal when horse meat turned up in Tesco burgers. You know?
I know some countries eat it, but that to me is just...
But this is what I'm saying. This is the 70s.
Yeah.
Health inspector isn't driving all the way out to Newt County to stop off at Drayton Sawyer's shit-ass little fucking gas station to test out his equipment.
That's true. Did he even have the business registered? Did the health officials even know the business is there? There you go.
Again, back arse of nowhere.
Yeah.
Nobody's fucking checking on it.
No. Inside, the household roles hardened. Drayton handled transactions and presentation. Norbert and Robert operated more erratically, engaging in grave disturbances and property trespass. And the largest of the younger men, known variably as Jed or Bubba, became the instrument. He didn't negotiate, he executed. Reports and later testimony describe him as physically imposing, developmentally limited, and deeply conditioned by hierarchy. He responded to authority. He carried out tasks without question.
And that's the most dangerous combination. Strength without autonomy. Obedience without evaluation. If you grow up believing your family defines right and wrong, you don't question the command.
Yeah.
This is basically, you don't question command, you perform it. And this is basically Every MAGA supporter in America.
Pretty much. So by 1973, the conditions were set. Isolation, skill, desensitization. A household insulated by administrative gaps. A property already accustomed to blood. Nothing had been proven, nothing had been prosecuted, but the structure was in place. And we now know it had been for a long time, far before the closing of the slaughterhouse. But that's a story for next week.
Sure is, and it was a frustrating story to write.
I can imagine. If the outside world saw a poor rural family, the inside operated differently. Accounts from survivors and later testimony describe a rigid hierarchy, and at the top sat the patriarch figure known as Grandpa. Official records place Earl Sawyer's birth in 1849. By 1973, he would have been 124 years old. The figure at the dinner table that night was either impossibly aged or preserved. Whether the family believed he was alive is unclear. What is clear is that he was treated as authority. He was positioned at the head of the table. He was handed tools and he was given final say in ritual.
And that's the detail that matters here. It doesn't matter if he was alive. It matters that they believed or behaved like he was.
Yeah.
Authority doesn't need a pulse if the structure obeys it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. We're going to get deeper again into all of this next week. And it really explains the myth and the age fucking issues and even the survivor statements that this decrepit looking corpse like man would move and do stuff. They were very minor movements, very small kind of gestures that kind of sold him on his reality. But again, you're in a traumatic situation with a bunch of shit around you that's already probably, what's the word? Interfering with your reality a little bit,
Yeah, with
your sense of reality of what's real and what's fake. So it does make a difference, and we will kind of get deeper into that next week. I'm actually really looking forward to next week's episode, because next week's episode is a very, very much a prequel to what goes on here, and very much, very detailed. I did a lot of work figuring out who belongs to who and who's aged what.
As you can tell, he's very proud of it.
Proud of it. I had a full head of hair before I started this fucking episode.
You wish. So below Grandpa was Drayton, transactional, composed, the one who dealt with outsiders. He handed money, he handled presentation. He attempted civility. Norbert and Robert were less restrained. I'm having awful trouble saying Norbert's name. Erratic.
I'll just go with Nubbins.
Nubbins, good. He was erratic. They were erratic even. They were performative, escalatory. They desecrated graves. They taunted. They disrupted. But inside the house, they deferred upward. And then there was Jed, physically dominant, socially isolated, task-oriented. He wasn't the planner. He wasn't the negotiator. He was the instrument.
Yeah, and instruments don't self-direct.
No.
They respond to grip. If hierarchy tells you who you are every day of your life, you don't wake up and question it, you fulfill it.
Exactly.
The best way I can explain Bubba Sawyer to the world is he was their dog. He was their guard dog. That's essentially what he was. He was treated like the house dog.
Yeah.
At least at this point in his life,
Yeah.
he was being treated like a fucking dog.
Makes sense. So dinner was not chaos. It was structured. The seating was deliberate. Roles were understood. And when violence was introduced, it followed ritual. Grandpa was handed the hammer. Permission was sought. Even in brutality, there was choreography.
And that's what separates frenzy from culture. Frenzy is impulsive. Culture is repeated. When something becomes ritual, it's no longer spontaneous. It's tradition.
Exactly.
And the Sawyers are built on tradition.
It's like the song from Fiddler on the Roof. Tradition.
Never seen Fiddler on the Roof.
Wait a while. The house functioned as a closed system. Authority flowed downward. Obedience flowed upward. Outsiders were not engaged socially. They were processed. By the time 4 young adults arrived at that property in 1973, they were not encountering random madness. They were stepping into a structure that had existed long before them, and a structure that had never been interrupted.
That's fucked up. Do you know that something can just fester away like that silently? Again, it's pre-internet age, so I understand, but it's like just this thing can fester in the corner and nobody gives a shit as long as it doesn't bother them personally.
Like
you know?
Sonny Bean.
Very similar. Very similar. Or the Bloody Benders
Or the
that
Bloody
we talked
Benders,
about on into live
exactly.
action this week.
Yeah.
You know, and they would have been probably just before this lot. I mean, they'd be
Just
about
before,
Grandpa's
yeah, I was just
time.
about to say it.
They
Yeah.
went missing. I wonder if where Grandpa was when the Bender,
Solved
when
the Bloody
the
Bender
senior
case.
Bender fucking went missing. And that's not Senior Bender, that's the Senior Bender.
Senior Bender.
What was his name? Was it John Bender Senior?
John Bender
And John
Senior.
Bender Junior.
Yes. I
And
would
then there
assume
was
if it's a
Kate
senior.
Senior and Kate Junior, and Kate Senior was Elvira.
Elvira. Exactly.
Not Kate Senior was Elvira. We're not saying
No,
Elvira. committed any
Elvira
crime.
was also.
That was her nickname.
Yeah.
We're assuming that's where Elvira, the famous person, got
The TV
famous horror
personality.
icon, got that name from.
Yeah. So despite what later folklore would suggest, the Sawyer family as a whole were not systematic grave robbers. That particular obsession belonged almost entirely to the twins. As we said, Norbert Nubbins Sawyer and Robert Chop Top Sawyer. In the period we're discussing, it was almost exclusively Nubbins. The twins had what can only be described as artistic ambition.
Yes.
They took influence from another killer and self-styled craftsman, Ed Gein. They studied obituaries. They tracked fresh burials. And once the soil settled, they returned to exhume. Bones were cleaned and repurposed. Flesh was tanned and stretched. Lamps were constructed from skeletons. Furniture was assembled from rib cages and femurs. Skin became pouches, cushions, coverings. The interior of the Sawyer home became a gallery of stolen anatomy.
And that's the detail that shifts this from poverty to performance. This wasn't survival. This was display. You don't wire a corpse upright because you're hungry. You do it because you want someone to see it. I mean, fuck it. And I mean, they must have, because if you look at when Ed Gein was and when Ed Gein ended, it really does line up with, like, you know, their formative years and how they. I wonder, did Ed know that there was some people out there taking
That looked up to him. Poor old Ed.
Who's your favorite artist? Ed Gein.
That lamp was cool though.
Oh, okay.
But
No more
I'd
interior design by
3D
Amy.
print it. I wouldn't go out and like exhume a grave just to get that. I would have it 3D printed or buy it from someone who already had it made, so I didn't feel guilty over it. No, I'm joking. So when Robert left for the army, the slaughterhouse closed. Nubbins lost structure, lost stimulation, he lost audience. He remained on inherited land with diminishing work and increasing isolation. In hindsight, it was Nubbins who accelerated the family's exposure. What began as grave disturbance evolved into this is my hard word.
Provocation.
Thank you. Provocation.
And this is a fucked up point that I did not realize the first time we covered this. You can pinpoint all of the Sawyer's fucking woes going forward on Nubbins' inability to just sit still and do nothing.
Just sit in your hands, Nubbins. So years after and your own hands, nobody else's hands. Years after Sheriff Hal Hartman's death, Nubbins exhumed his body. Using steel wire, he positioned the former sheriff upright. In Hartman's skeletal hands, he placed the shattered skull of Betty. The body was secured in place by impalement against a concrete monument.
Up his butt!
Yuck. It was not subtle and it was not concealed. It was defiance. Or was it reuniting a father with his daughter? Okay, yeah. No, I get it.
So that's not vandalism, that's a message. And when you send a message to law enforcement in rural Texas, you don't get ignored,
No.
you get attention. I mean, especially if you're getting away with doing what you're doing here, the last thing you want to do is piss off the fucking Texan fucking police. That's like asking for trouble. The only way he could have asked for more trouble in this situation was being Mexican and pissing off the Texas police.
Feel like in Texas, if people got wind of this before the authorities could pounce, that's lynch mob territory.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But now, the authorities descended on Newt County Cemetery, and at least 12 additional graves were confirmed disturbed, and the vandalism was no longer rumour. It was documented, public, and alarming. And it was this surge in grave desecration that drew the Hardesty family to the area. Their grandfather's grave was located in the same cemetery, and they came to verify whether it had been disturbed. They were not chasing legend. They were responding to escalation.
That's what I'm saying. This is the chain reaction. Nubbins escalates art. Art draws law enforcement. Law enforcement draws families. Families drive deeper into Newt County. And once they're inside that radius, they intersect the house. And that is, like I said, Nubbins is the cause of this. Because like I said, they've been desecrating graves for years at this point. But when they're doing it, when it's him and Chopped Up together, it's like one grave at a time. And you know, one little piece here, one little piece there. Kind of like Ed Gein.
Yeah.
You know, they were really role modeling themselves off of Ed Gein. And Ed wasn't caught because Ed wasn't fucking digging up
whole body.
people. When he met Art, he left it inside his house.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's true as well.
He didn't impale one of his former enemies on a fucking cemetery fucking stone, a headstone with his daughter's head who you murdered in her fucking hand.
He just wanted new furniture. He was redecorating.
In the cemetery? He didn't bring it home with him.
No, that's true as well.
This one was, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
Everything else was brought home with him. So the evidence isn't there. Or even if you noticed the disturbed grave, like the soil in the grave.
No, I mean, Ed.
You're not going to be really kind of think twice about it, you know? You're just going to think, all right, maybe they're doing some fucking landscaping around here or fixing the place up or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you walk into a graveyard and there sits a corpse that has been dead for multiple years, still in his suit, decaying, with another skull in his hands, and you realize who it is, you can start to make connections. You can start to work backwards. Who did Hal Hartman have a problem with? How did Betty Hartman die in the first place? Well, that leads us right back to that fucking old farmhouse right over there with the weird family living in it.
Yep. So what followed for the Hardesties was horrific. But the initial spark wasn't random. It wasn't fate. It was boredom turning into spectacle. And spectacle drawing witnesses. Nubbins did not intend to dismantle his own family, but by demanding attention, he lit a fuse. And it would take 21 more years for the explosion to be fully realised. But the burn began here.
That's what I'm saying. He is the root cause of I mean, like, when people look at this, and even in our own title, The Legend of Leatherface, the hulking monster who wears fucking people's faces as masks and rips a chainsaw at fucking people, he has become this almost mythical, legendary fucking being that existed amongst this cannibal fucking clan. When realistically, if left alone, this guy would have just sat in a fucking room without doing shit. It was these erratic, wild bastards that were around him, egging him on and screaming around him. They were the threat. They were the fucking problem.
Yeah.
And Nubbins being left to boredom, being told to stay at home and mind your brother, that was enough to send him off out, you know, kind of thinking, well, how can I piss people off? What can I do today? You know? What kind of fun can we have today? You know, it's just, he's out of work. He's got nothing else to do, so he's going to fucking cause problems, you know?
Yeah. The first Sawyer the Hardesties encountered wasn't Leatherface. It was Norbert Nubbins Sawyer. He flagged down the van on a rural stretch of Texas Road, and Sally described him as a thin, restless, talkative, erratic. He spoke obsessively about slaughterhouses, about the old way of killing cattle, about how the new air gun removed the artistry. He handled a straight razor without prompting, and he cut his own palm deliberately. And he smeared blood across the van interior. He photographed Franklin, and they burned the photograph in front of them.
Before we go any further here, so Franklin is Sally Hardesty's brother. So that's the two Hardesty siblings who came to check on their grandfather's grave. The discussion of the old way versus new way was like, Franklin was very well versed on the family history and the history of the location where they were at. He knew a lot about his grandfather's past as a farmer. And they were discussing, he was actually discussing out of interest with Nubbins, who had said his family had generationally worked in the slaughterhouse, about like the old ways versus the new ways of slaughtering animals. Franklin was like, well, I know they use a new air gun now and it's just a very quick and they're gone. But Nubbins was very much kind of like, at this point, I suppose he'd watched his entire family lose their livelihood to this. And he was like, no, the sledge is better. The sledge is quick. The sledge finishes them off and all this stuff. But that's not quite true. You're hitting a fucking animal in the head with a sledgehammer didn't always kill him.
The first time,
you know?
No.
And in that environment, in that area, that didn't matter if they were dead or not. They would just get fucking, once they were down, they were just dragged along and the slaughter began, dead or alive. They were fucking down and out, and that was enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the cruelty level here was...
They reveled in the cruelty.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't kosher.
No, no. So,
wasn't halal.
When the Hardesties even attempted to distance themselves, Nubbins became agitated. Before exiting, he slashed Franklin's arm. Sally testified that he laughed as he walked away. And there is no evidence Drayton knew this encounter occurred.
Impulsive boredom, attention seeking, not orchestration. And I think this is important as well, because there's always this mentality that this was like this kind of roadside trap that was created by the three Sawyer brothers here. That there was this mentality that, because I think, like you mentioned there, and we didn't really get too much into it, about Nubbins with the straight edge in his car. What happened was Franklin had been playing with a knife, according to Sally. Nubbins asked to look at the knife and then sliced it across his own hand and then handed it back to him and then pulled out a straight razor and said, this is my knife and all that stuff, and then slashed at fucking Franklin, and then they kicked him out of the car.
Okay.
And he started rubbing his blood in the side of the van. And according to Sally, Franklin was very worried that Nubbins had marked the van with the blood for a reason, that there was a symbol, there was some sort of way of
tracking them, letting everybody know.
Stuck in wires here. Yeah, letting the other brothers know that that this was a target. When you look at the evidence now, it would seem like nobody knew what the other one was fucking doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They never came across. I mean, Bubba and never comes across this van to know that it's marked. He never leaves the house. And Drayton, according to Sally, now Sally is a hard fucking witness to fucking follow up on, mainly because she's dead now. But outside of that, she was traumatized. Yeah. And what she might have heard and what she didn't hear are two different things. But she claims that when she finally realized that these three were actually all related to each other, that she heard Drayton chastising Nubbins for desecrating graves. She heard him fucking chastising him for leaving Bubba alone in the house for this to happen with these kids, you know, in the first fucking place. And so from what I can tell, what happens to Sally Hardesty, her brother Franklin, and their friends is all just a big coincidence that they fell into the world of these three men, that none of these three men had planned it. None of these three men had been working on some idea. It was just sheer luck that they hit one after the other, and each one was worse than the next.
Okay. So later that day, the group stopped at a rural gas station, and that gas station was owned by Drayton. He was polite, measured. He claimed there was no fuel available, and he offered directions. He didn't behave as a man anticipating violence. And Sally never stated he appeared to recognize them.
But see, because Robert also insists, like Robert Sawyer, Chop Top Sawyer, who was imprisoned later, he insists Drayton didn't know that they had encountered Nubbins. That the two interactions were 100% independent.
Yeah.
He is kind of where that original idea came from. That this was never orchestrated.
Yeah.
This was just opportunity and happenstance, and this is just the way it fell. The card fucking fell from. Yeah. But he even admitted that Nubbins erratic behavior, and that's coming from a very erratic man who was the kind
So
of
Nubbins
the
was
catalyst
really
of
erratic.
causing what happened that day.
Yeah. The group left and continued toward the old Hardesty property. And after exploring the old farm, Kirk and Pam took off to find the old swimming hole Franklin had told them about, but the Texas heat had seen to its extinction.
Well, actually, we better fucking point out
That Kirk and Pam are in the
yeah,
minivan.
I forgot one or two things. I was in a panic trying to get all the details right. But yeah, in the van with Sally and Franklin was Sally's boyfriend Jerry
Mhm.
and Sally and Jerry's friend Kirk and Pam, who were also a couple.
Yeah.
So they were all together. They had been. It was just basically, you know yourself when you're on your. I mean, this is for them
Spring break.
college holidays. No, summer. This is August. So this is just before they go back to college.
Okay.
It's a kind of we gotta drive all the way down to fucking Newt to check on this grave. Oh, my grandpa's old farm's there as well. We can have a fucking nosy around there, make a day out of it, and we'll come home and everything will be
It's a road
fine.
trip.
So yeah, they all came along just kill a day in August, a hot day in August.
Exactly. So at the dried swimming hole near the abandoned Hardesty homestead, Kirk heard the hum of a generator and noticed a farmhouse visible in the distance. A generator means gas and the house active and close enough to suggest someone might be home. He and Pam walked toward it, but they did not return. As daylight faded, Jerry took the van keys and went looking for them, and he also did not return. That left Sally and Franklin stranded. No keys, no vehicle, no immediate way to leave. Sally testified that as darkness settled, she and Franklin attempted to navigate the wooded area toward the farmhouse. Franklin was killed there. She described the sound of a chainsaw before she saw the figure. She described a large masked man emerging from the dark. Franklin died in the woods. This was the only death Sally directly witnessed. She ran toward the farmhouse.
Yeah. 3 disappearances, 1 confirmed killing, and still no coordination, just escalation.
Sally entered the farmhouse seeking refuge, and inside she encountered a structure built from bone and decay. Furniture made from skeletal remains, skin stretched into coverings. In a side room, she saw 2 preserved bodies seated as if in performance. That was Earl and Wilhelmina Sawyer, displayed, not buried. She testified they appeared to be posed rather than laid to rest. Bubba entered in agitation.
No, again, Earl and Wilhelmina, don't worry about them.
We
We'll
already
tell you all
talked about
them
Earl.
next week. I know we talked about Earl. Wilhelmina was his wife. We will talk about all of that next week when we go through the Twisted Family tree.
Yes.
Okay? So she described Bubba coming into the house as like slamming doors, blocking exits, panic rather than strategy. And this is something that is constantly in the descriptions of the man they call Leatherface.
Yeah.
This is not a coordinated killer. This isn't fucking Jeffrey Dahmer. This isn't Ted Bundy. This is a man who is defending his home, who thinks he's defending his home, who is acting like someone is. To him, he is in a home invasion situation. These people have trespassed
Like
on
you
his
said,
land, and he doesn't know who they are, and they shouldn't be
Yeah.
there.
And like you said, he's effectively a guard dog. He's
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
what a
yeah.
good guard dog does.
Running around, going, "Arr, arr, arr, get out,
Yeah,
and he
exactly.
chased her fucking away, you know?
Yeah. So Sally fled upstairs and she jumped from a 2nd-story window and ran toward the road. She ran toward the gas station, the only location recognizable to her in this foreign terrain.
Now, this will show you how much of a fucking dog this guy is. Bubba pursued, but stopped short once she reached the gas station. He wouldn't enter. He knew that space was belonging to Drayton. He knew that was
Wasn't his
territory.
yeah.
And he's like, if I go in there all guns blazing, he's going to hit me with a newspaper on the nose and send me home. So I better just
Yeah.
fuck off. No.
So Bubba turned back toward the house and Sally burst into the gas station in hysteria. Drayton performed calm. He asked questions, he assessed, he saw blood, and he heard fragments, and he pieced together missing youths. Robert later testified that Drayton did not know about the van encounter until much later. And in that moment, he only knew something had happened on his land. He restrained Sally under the guise of assistance.
Yeah, and when that didn't work, he beat her with a broom and tied her up.
Sure did.
So, you know,
He
good fucking...
He placed her then in his truck and he drove her back to the house. This was the pivot where impulse became control.
The house panics, the gas station calculates.
Robert later stated that when Drayton returned with Sally restrained, he took stock. Pam was already dead in the freezer. Jerry and Franklin were in storage awaiting butchering. Kirk had already been processed. We don't know how. We only know the condition of remains from Robert's later recounting.
Yeah. So, I mean, these guys work fast.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Any opportunity, I suppose. And especially if the rumors are true and the meat that they were selling out of this fucking barbecue place, I would assume this would be like a golden opportunity to make some fucking money for this, this family. And it was processing as quick as we can, get them into the freezer and get them ready for...
Definitely.
Get them ready for the chili tomorrow.
So Sally was tied at the table. This was the first moment she realised they were all connected. Drayton, Nubbins, Bubba, the preserved patriarch at the head, and Wilhelmina displayed as a relic. Drayton shifted between civility and cruelty. He attempted to calm Nubbins and he chastised Bubba. He spoke as though hosting a dysfunctional family meal. Nubbins was manic and he mocked Sally. He leaned close to her face and he laughed at her terror. Bubba sought approval. He shifted between aggression and confusion. They treated Earl as living and they placed a hammer in his decayed hand. They attempted to force him to strike Sally. The ritual was less about execution and more about humiliation. Drayton insisted on doing things right. The family dynamic was visible in hierarchy. Drayton as authority, Nubbins as unstable instigator, and Bubba as obedient instrument. Sally described the soundscape more than visuals. Laughter, mockery, metal scraping wood, breathing, and eventually she escaped.
No, before she escaped, I mean, just talking about this whole fucking situation. She kind of like, she did describe some small parts. Like, number one, she said she had been knocked out previous to this. And when she woke up, she was tied to a literal armchair. And when I say armchair, the chair had arms. Do you know?
Yeah.
She was like, the lampshade was a human fucking face.
I wonder what their headboards were made out of.
I have no idea. Most likely heads. Skulls.
The legs of their tables.
Not Richard Ramirez, but Jeffrey Dahmer would have loved that shit.
Loved
he
that.
wanted this altar an altar made of skulls. Isn't that what he wanted?
Why didn't the man just move to, is it Poland where they have, I think it's Poland, it's either Poland or Lithuania where they have a fucking chapel made out of skulls and bones. It's class.
But yeah, that would be cool.
I'm gonna show you later. I'll show you pictures later. It's on my bucket list of places to see before I die.
But yeah, I mean, like fucking, there was something I was gonna say there now, and I can't fully fucking remember what it was. It slipped out of my mind again, and it was something about this that is important. Ritual less than it.
Is it important if you can't remember?
That's a good point. That is a good point. Anyway, so we'll just move on. Nubbins, who Sally claims was the driving force behind using Earl's decaying body as a means to strike Sally, because that was the idea. They were sitting at the table, they were discussing, they were literally explaining, oh, I remember now. This is a weird fucking little thing as well, but we'll talk about it in a minute. But they were discussing basically why they did what they did, giving them a bit of, Drayton was trying to give a bit of context, and I don't understand why. It's almost like fucking explaining to your food why you're going to eat it. And and he explained that, like, one big detail she said was, like, Drayton didn't seem like he claimed to not like killing. Said that he couldn't do it. Like, that Nubbins was very much almost rebellious against Drayton at times with you're not man enough to do the killing or the butchering around here. You're just a cook. You're just a cook. But as soon as Drayton would raise his voice, Nubbins would shrink back fucking down again. The interesting thing that was said here by Sally was that she thought, now again, she's an unreliable witness due to the trauma she was under and due to how quick everything was happening. But she thinks that Bubba had switched faces from her original meeting with him to passing out and then waking up at the kitchen at the dining room table.
Okay.
He had makeup on. The
Ooh.
face had makeup on.
Pretty.
That he had, it's almost like he had gotten dressed up for dinner, because when she said when she first encountered him, he was wearing a butcher's apron, an old shirt, old pants, old look, and his face was very you could tell it was a stitched together fucking face of human skin with a bit of a wig on top.
Okay.
And then she said later, when they're sitting at the dinner table, that he was wearing a suit and tie.
Okay.
And his face had clearly had makeup on it. That there was smeared fucking lipstick, eyeshadow, and all this shit around his eyes. And that was another point as well, that it was mentioned in passing, but not really fucking specified that they were going to do this. But that Bubba seemed infatuated with her face, and the eye, and the idea
He
was
wanted a new face.
The idea was floated that maybe they'd keep Sally's face for Bubba. But yeah. So at this stage, Earl's 124-year-old fucking corpse is sitting at the head of the table, and this will show you where their mindset's at when it comes to the patriarch of the family, the legend that is Earl Sawyer, right?
Okay.
Nubbins suggests that they use, and I still think that this is all theatrics. And we'll see later on, especially when we get to part 3, and we're discussing what they've done with Nubbins by part 3. These guys were well able to manipulate dead bodies to make them seem like they might be making small movements. Because Sally claims that before the dinner, the dining room shit happened, that what caused her to pass out wasn't being hit by one of the Sawyers. She passed out screaming in fright, because she said they pierced her finger and put it in Earl Sawyer's corpse mouth.
Trying to wake
And
him up.
according to her, he sucked on it. The corpse sucked on the body, and that his arms and legs started to go kind of up and down, but in a very marionette puppet-esque kind of fucking manner. And that the whole time this was happening, Nubbins was holding her in place. She was screaming and barely looking, and Bubba was standing behind Earl. So the general belief is that due to the trauma of the situation, and due to the fact that she was barely looking at what was going on anyway, because she was in a panic over what was being done to her, that most likely Bubba knew the ritual, knew what they were supposed to fucking do, and that he was manipulating the arms and legs of Earl from behind to make it look like he was moving, even going so far as to make sucking sounds. Yeah. And that really Earl wasn't sucking on the blood at all. It was just that the finger was in the mouth, the blood was dripping down his mouth. It looked like he was alive and performing. But really, it was just a fucking corpse that they were using. It was almost like theater for their own sake. Okay. Which is weird, like, you know, because we will get really deep into it next week. But there was a level of denial when Earl died. And it's a very, very strange story. We'll talk about it next week, because when it comes to Wilhelmina, they deal with it in a completely different manner. Okay. Even down to playing the blame game and stuff like that. It comes in a very, very different fucking manner. But Nubbins insisted at this point, he was the driving force, that Earl, his decaying body, was going to be the means they were going to use to strike Sally down with a death blow from a hammer. They kept saying, him and Drayton kept saying, Grandpa was the best. Grandpa, when the slaughterhouse was open, Grandpa could kill fucking, I can't remember the exact number they discussed in records and stuff like that, but it was somewhere along the, he could kill fucking 12 in 5 minutes, 12 in 2 minutes, 12 in 3 minutes, whatever it is. More if they could have pulled the bodies out quick enough, that he was the master of killing animals when it came to slaughterhouse work. So they wanted to use him. And again, even in this scenario, they're trying to manipulate his hand around the hammer and Bubba is the one lifting the hand and
bringing
bringing
it down.
But the hammer isn't staying in the fucking hand,
What is not?
And the man who suggests we do this, the man who's like, yeah, let's let Grandpa kill her,
Yeah.
he gets frustrated that the death isn't coming fast enough and that the hammer keeps slipping. And in the process of getting frustrated that the 124-year-old corpse wasn't getting the job done, he forgot. He kind of insisted that he'd take over and finish the job, but forgot that he was the one restraining Sally in the first fucking place for Bubba to hit her with the hammer using Grandpa's fucking arm. This is how confusing and fucked up this shit gets. Yes, the big autistic man was using the corpse of a fucking 124-year-old grandfather to try and swing a hammer. The hammer wouldn't stay in the hand, so the fucking brother that's irrational and crazy decides, fuck it, Grandpa can't do it because, he can't hold a hammer anymore because he's been dead for fucking, God knows how fucking long at this fucking point. Forgets that he's the one restraining the fucking victim, and Sally, for the second time in fucking less than a couple of hours, fucks herself through a fucking pane glass window and runs off. She is costing the Sawyer as a fortune in fucking glazing.
You can't make that from dead bodies.
Well, it'll show you how desperate as well you are. I mean, no, at least this time she's on the ground floor.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see how desperate she was earlier on. Second story. No fucking thought in the mind, just straight out the fucking window.
No.
Do whether that was a case of disorientation and not knowing where she was in the fucking house, or just sheer desperation to get away?
Yeah.
She's willing to do it again. It worked the first time, I'm going to do it again. And at this stage, she's throwing herself out the fucking window to see that there's daylight.
Yeah, exactly.
She's spent the entire fucking night with these fucking psychopaths,
Yeah. So she fled the house at dawn, and Nubbins and Bubba followed close behind.
And again, the collapse of this family, who next week we'll cover just how long they had been active. But needless to say, by Earl's age, it had been quite some time at this point. But the collapse is brought on by Nubbins' uncontrollable fucking lunacy. Yeah. Even Sally herself has said that at any point after she broke through that window, Nubbins could have grabbed her and held her in place for Bubba to retrieve, but instead he decided to play with his food. When she took off running down their driveway, the two of them weren't long behind her. Nubbins was a scrawny, skinny little dude. He could move fast.
Yeah.
Bubba a little more lumbering.
Yeah.
So he was a little slower behind. But the same straight-edged razor that he had in his pocket that he had slashed her brother's arm with, he starts playing with it. He's right behind her. He could grab her by the shoulders and hold her in place at any stage. But instead, he's swiping at her fucking back, slicing. There's just these little superficial fucking wounds and giggling in delight as he does it.
Yeah.
Thinking this is the greatest fun ever. This act of sheer mockery cost the man more than his dinner. It cost him his life. He chased Sally to a point in the road with a bend. Okay? Coming around that bend was an articulated truck. Nubbins didn't notice it until it was too late.
So the passing truck struck Nubbins.
Sure did.
Dragged his body under as the multi-wheeled vehicle destroyed him.
The truck driver tried to help, but the shock of a man wearing a face that wasn't his own and waving a chainsaw in the air kept him distracted. But Sally said the man had the whereabouts to grab a monkey wrench from his cab and launch it at Bubba's head. The monster fell, cutting his own leg with the chainsaw that he had been swinging. So that bought him a little bit of time.
Yeah.
The truck driver ran as Leatherface continued to focus solely on Sally.
Okay. But the wrench and the leg injury had brought Sally enough time, and thankfully luck and a good Samaritan did the rest. A teen in a pickup truck was passing by and, seeing the mayhem, pulled a 180 turn, stopping just long enough for Sally to dive into the flatbed of the truck. Bubba stood at the roadside at sunrise, chainsaw raised.
And that image becomes the legend. Not the grave, not the bone furniture, but the sunrise dance that Sally describes. She said that as she drove off, he was effortlessly swinging the chainsaw with one hand, doing what? I mean, like, this is a woman who was about to slip into fucking a catatonic state. And she, even after everything she had been through, said it was almost beautiful to watch. And if you had put music to it, classical music to it, it would have looked like a work of art in that kind of orange glow of the fucking kind of Texas desert sun. And this wild fucking man doing this strange sort of dancing motion with the fucking chainsaw as she drove off.
Maybe it was his version of a war dance.
It's bizarre the way she describes it. I've seen people paint kind of pictures of what they think it might have looked like. There's been artist renditions of what they think this might have looked like, going off of what Sally described at the time. But it's wild. It's a wild, straight up wild fucking thing to see.
Yeah. So Sally survived, but 4 young people did not return home. Drayton assessed the damage. The house was reorganized, evidence moved, vehicles relocated. Nubbins' recklessness was undeniable. The family was no longer insulated, and rumors spread throughout Newt County. One witness lived. The Sawyers were exposed. Not publicly convicted, but exposed. This was the beginning of the fracture, not the end.
2 things that I think saved Drayton and prolonged the Sawyer reign of terror, and that was his acting ability and his attention to the clean up detail. The lorry driver who hit Bubba with the wrench, he was never accounted for. No missing persons report, no sign of existence, full fucking stop. The truck was even gone, as was any sign of Nubbins being eviscerated in that spot. So when police got to the fucking farmhouse, because this rumor that they couldn't find the fucking farmhouse is bullshit, as you said at the start.
Yeah.
Everybody knew where the Sawyer farmhouse was. They were the weird fucking people in Newt County. Everybody knew. But you would expect a man who got ran over by a fucking, I don't know what it was, 12-wheeler, 16-wheeler fucking truck or whatever, that there'd be some blood on the fucking floor. You know, of the concrete, especially in that heat. It's going to dry quickly. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
Nothing. The truck, nothing. No company comes looking for lost stock. In the eyes of administration and law, this man and whatever he was hauling didn't exist on paper, essentially meaning he didn't exist as a reliable witness or as evidence.
Worse again, the good Samaritan that saved Sally decided his work was done. He left her outside the nearest hospital and left. He never came forward despite police appeals over the years. But Nubbins' damage was beyond the narrative control of Drayton, who, and now changes had to be made to sustain the Sawyer legacy.
And we'll dive deep into how they pulled that off in 2 weeks' time. Because before we go forward, we need to step back and see what made the Sawyers what they became, starting with Earl Sawyer and his legacy of incest and cannibalism that brings us back to post-Civil War America and brings us all the way back up to the story laid out today.
And we'll get into that next week in episode 97, The Sawyer Family and the Legend of Leatherface Part 2, where we splinter into the family tree.
Yes, we did it.
Is that a weight off you? Not a weight. I wouldn't say it like that, but you had a successful episode.
Well, because I think there is a mentality of how this story actually happened, and I think because this story is so old now, this happened 50 years ago, and over the 50 years, this thing has taken on a life of its own. This legend of this family. It's taken on a mind of its own. It's kind of like we talked about with the Sonny Bean episode of It's Live Action.
Yeah.
About how, you know, when things happen so far back and over time, legend builds and stories change and things tweak. Like, I mean, when we originally covered this, as far as we were concerned, the Three Brothers had set up a roadside trap for these fucking people. And now we figure out, no. These these 3 brothers had no idea that the other ones had met these fucking same 5 or young adults, whatever the fuck they were in their 20s.
Yeah.
None of them had any idea what was fucking going on. And then there was this kind of fucking mentality that what they did later in Dallas was the big thing to take them down and to finish them off. Or to at least start the process of finishing them off. When really, no, it wasn't. Nubbins and his fucking grave art, cemetery art.
Mm.
That was the point of no return for them.
Exactly.
As soon as he pulled Hartman's body back out of that fucking grave and put it up for everybody to fucking see, that was like a coming out party for the fucking Sawyer family. Do you know, it was
Pretty
like,
much
we're
like
here.
Franz Ferdinand being shot and World War One breaking out. That was the turning point.
It
Yeah.
was like you're after showing yourself after decades and decades and decades of building this installation. One tiny little fucking prick leaked the whole fucking place.
Yep.
And finish it off. And the motherfucker died before he could even see it happen. See the damage he did.
Karma.
Do you know what I mean? Now, as I said, we did an episode on Sawney Bean this week. It is up on It's up on the Horrorverse Network on It's Alive Action. Next week we'll be looking at the Bloody Benders, who also relate to this whole fucking scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Playing with Bones is back, and we are now coming. This is starting this week.
Starting this week with.
Well, it's starting. Well, yeah. Yesterday you would have gotten the Tupac episode. The last episode was Celebrity Rap Sheet. Now, next Tuesday, we are starting with Fierce
Women Warriors for Women's Month, because we are officially in Women's Month next week.
Yeah. That'll be March.
That'll be March.
Oh, yeah, we're right. We're still in February.
That's
Even
true.
If we're recording this late, we're still in
We're
February.
recording on the last tomorrow was March. Sorry.
Shh, no, it's not.
You just said we were recording it late.
Anyway.
Why is it okay for you to tell the truth and I gotta cover it up? Sorry. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll be doing Boudica and Playing with Bones.
Yes, and that was a fun story to talk about. We have that pre-recorded, so yeah, we can.
That will be on time.
We also have Mini Monsters. We have Real Talk with the Doctor. We have all the episodes of Celebrity Rap Sheet. All the old episodes of Playing with Bones. We have old shows like Real Monsters up there. We have It's a Live Action every week. We have Amy Rose's photos, and we have
Twitch every Monday night. Amy Rose 9 on Twitch.
And we are on all socials at Alive Pod, mainly active on Instagram, to be honest with you, but all our shit goes to everything.
You'll find us everywhere in some form.
One way or another, we're like the Sawyers. We'll pop up somewhere. We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse, and I can't wait for next week. Because if this story was just a little bit frustrating to try and piece together because of it being kind of so legendary, next week's story was one of the most stressful things I've ever had to fucking do in my life, but also fulfilling, because I got to kind of figure out where all these bastards fit in perfectly. And then, who's brother, dad, and who's mama, sister, and who's cousin, brother. And we figure it all out. So we'll see y'all then. Same Alive time. Same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.